Is you cool with the angle?
Yes, we are good to go.
I don't understand what you're going through, but I'm here to support. That's my high school wrestling coach. That's my advisor in college. That's a manager at my last job. That's my wife. That's people I work with at Apple. That's people who are redefining what it means to be possible, people who are out selling millions of products, people who are advising college students, teachers. I don't understand what you're going through, but I'm here to support. They say that like that's supposed to help me feel better, but I have to ask myself, like, you don't understand. How crazy is that? What does that say about me, that my feelings, my human emotions, this human experience, this is so bizarre that you can create new materials. You can lead universities. You can do all these huge, crazy things, but you can't even understand my humanity. I don't understand what you're going through, but I'm here to support. What does that say about me? You don't understand, but also, like, what does that say about you? My reason for doing this presentation is to help you stop having to say, I don't understand. Let's do it. Very obvious disclaimer. I don't speak for Black people, but just know that my story is not unique. These emotions are widespread. I know a lot of people who feel the same way I do. I'm not trying to persuade you of anything. I'm just sharing my truth. And this is a conversation starter, but I beg you, please keep the conversation going after this is done. In this presentation, this is not politically correct. This is not happy. I'm gonna curse. I'm gonna say some racial slurs. And I have to, because if I do anything short of give you 100% honesty, regardless of how uncomfortable or how ugly that is, anything short of 100% honesty, that would be lying. And I refuse to let that happen. I refuse to be part of the problem. This is my son, Brixton. He just turned 2 in June. And every day he teaches me to appreciate life. He teaches me to find the beauty in every moment. This presentation, this is my way of being anti-racist. This is my protest. Just like an artist needs to create and engineers need to build, as the father to a Black child in America, I must protest. Because one day this little man is going to look me in the eyes and say, Daddy, what did you do to protect me? The idea of disappointing him in that moment, the idea of not having an answer that I'm absolutely proud of, that's terrifying. That's more scary than being emotionally vulnerable in front of whoever watches this. But also, my son is half white. My wife is white. My in-laws, several of my best friends, several of my mentors, they're all white. I've grown up my whole life. I lived my whole life around white people. I love white people. I know not every white person wants to kill me. I know not every white person wants to see me dead in the news, but that doesn't change the truth of what I'm about to tell you. Also, my wife and I are 8 months pregnant. And the fact that I'm about to bring another black life into this world, I'm about to create another black American, another black man in America, that makes this so much more potent, so much more real for me. So let's get into it. How did I get here today? Every day, people ask the question, how are you? But then don't even pause long enough for you to give an honest answer. One of my coworkers, this was shortly after George Floyd was killed, one of my coworkers asked me, Evan, how are you doing? But he asked me in a way that it felt like he wanted a truthful answer. And I'm here today because I just decided to be honest. And I love the idea of being able to say, I decided I was going to be strong. I decided to be an activist. But that's not true. In reality, I just didn't have the emotional energy to lie. I couldn't tell the lie that we tell so many times over and over. I couldn't just type the words, I'm good. He couldn't see me. He would have never known. But after George Floyd was killed, the idea of being good felt dirty. The idea of enjoying my weekend, the idea of laughing, the idea of being happy, it just felt dirty. And the idea of lying and saying I'm good felt disrespectful to myself, to my emotions. It felt disrespectful to the lives that have been lost. And I couldn't do it. So let's talk about race. If you're afraid of snakes, don't go to the jungle. If you're afraid of spiders, stay out of the shed. If you're afraid of being mugged, don't go down dark alleys. But where can I hide from the Amy Coopers or the killer cops or the kind old white people that say all lives matter, or the anxiety from not knowing which one you are? People can tell you where they were when they received life-changing news. I know exactly where I was when 9/11 happened. I know exactly where I was when I found out my grandmother had passed. I remember the light in my sister's room. I remember the hallway I was standing in. But can you tell me where you were when you found out George Floyd was killed? Because I know exactly where I was. It was around 5 p.m. on a Wednesday. It was during quarantine. My wife and I were both home. We're both working full-time jobs. Brixton, our son, hadn't quite turned 2 yet. He was at home. Daycare was closed. We didn't have a babysitter. We're already trying to figure out, how do we both work full-time jobs with this crazy kid running around the house? I walked inside. My wife jumps off the couch. Have you seen this? She says. She pauses CNN. I look at the TV. I see George Floyd's face beneath the cop's knee. And immediately I see it, and I'm already overwhelmed. I'm already consumed by sadness, by sorrow. Fuck, I have to see this again. I'm already consumed by anxiety in my stomach, in my chest. It's already hard to talk. I already can't push out the words, wife, please, no. I'm thinking to myself, I've seen the headlines. I've ignored the headlines. I've ignored the news. I've ignored Facebook. I can't afford this. I have so much to do. I have an ID review coming up. I have so much work. I'm in the middle of a prototype build. Work is crazy. I have so much. Wife, how are we going to stay on top of this? Like, I can't. If you tell me these words, if you tell me the story, wife, is going to kill me. And I can't afford it. Please don't. Please. But I'm already so caught up. I'm so consumed by this cloud of darkness. I can't even say the words. I can't say the words no. I can't put up my hand fast enough to say, please, no. And she says it. They killed him. I try to think of something else, some other moment that has consumed me as much as that has. They killed him. I try to compare anything else. What else have I experienced that took over my brain, that took over my emotions, that took over me so completely? Getting a job offer from a dream company, a job offer from Apple, that doesn't compare. Proposing to my wife, getting married, doesn't compare. Graduating from Carnegie Mellon, doesn't compare. The only thing that compares to this in terms of how much it is taken from me, how unavoidable, how inescapable it is, the only thing that it compares to is the birth of my first son. What a privilege it must be to be able to forget for even a second, to forget their names, to forget George Floyd, Freddie Gray, to forget Trayvon Martin. What a privilege it is to forget the riots and the protests and how much you wish you could join them. What a privilege it is to forget your anger, to forget your fear. But fear for yourself, I mean, like that's easy. That's not a concern. But what about the fear you have for your friends or the fear you have for your kids? What a privilege it is to forget history, to forget America's history, to forget your family's history, to forget your own personal history. What a privilege it is to forget your race, to forget your otherness. When you talk about racism in America, people tend to take one of two stances. Either racism is everywhere. It's in the school system. It's in the housing system. It's at work. Or they argue racism doesn't exist here. I just heard on the news, racism is a word that Democrats use. It doesn't exist, not in my town, not in my office, not in my home. People get stuck arguing statistics and one-off situations and historical references and this and that, anything to support their truth. But for people who feel like I do, people who think like I do, my trauma is the only truth. I remember around the time that George Floyd was killed, I read on an Apple website, Evan, it's okay to not be okay. I looked at that and I asked myself, does my manager, does she know what not okay looks like? Do my coworkers, do they know what not okay looks like? Because in reality, when I look back on it, I didn't know what not okay looked like. I was still in college when Trayvon Martin was killed. I remember I looked at his face and I recognized my family members. I recognized Cotney Washington. I recognized Justin Moorhead. I recognized Justin Smith. I digested everything I could about Trayvon's story. I watched every video. I read every article. I looked at it and I was okay. Because then the message was just, don't wear a black hoodie and you'll be okay. When Michael Brown was killed in 2014, the Ferguson riots happened. I looked at everything I could about this story. I went back to my university. I sat on a panel. I talked to hundreds of college students. And I was the one saying, don't fight a cop. Don't resist a cop. Do what a cop says and you'll be okay. I was that person. But now it's completely different. People ask why now, and it's because the message is so different. The message is so well balanced, it's so well rounded, it's so coordinated, it's so systemic, and it's so personal. It's just for me, but it doesn't start with Evan. They don't address you as Evan. They don't address you as Apple employee. No. Carnegie Mellon graduate. No. Man. No. Boy. Nigger. You can be killed anywhere at any time. That's the message you get over and over and over every day. Every time you look at an electronic screen, every time you look at an Apple Watch, every time you look at an iPhone, every time you look at an iPad, every time you look at the news, every time a commercial changes, every time I ever look at Facebook, if I scroll too fast on Instagram, the message is always there. Nigga, you can be killed anywhere at any time. Anytime I overhear a conversation on a sidewalk, every time I think about driving, the message is the same. You look at what happened to Christian Cooper. This is a black man who had the nerve, who had the audacity to ask a white lady in Central Park to follow the law. Please put your dog on a leash. Amy responded by taking out her phone and making one call because she knew in America, that's all it takes to have a black man killed. I look at this story and think, damn, white women can have you killed at will. I look at this, you read more about this, and I find myself asking the question, what if? What if she got her way? What if she got what she wanted? What if she didn't get caught? What if there's other white women out there who know that they have this power? What if he had done anything differently? What if Christian Cooper was having the worst day of his life? What if he panicked? What if he responded like she did? What if he was autistic? What if he had any other issue? What if his phone didn't have a camera on it? What if he didn't have his phone? So many what ifs. What if I was there? What if I was the first black man that the cop saw? What if the cop was closer? There's so many things that could have ended with a black man being killed for no reason. You look at it, you say, damn, white women can have you killed. Ahmaud Arbery was a black man running in his neighborhood when a group of white men looked at him. They hunted him down. They accosted him. They attacked him. They shot him dead in the streets, not for any action that he had taken, but because they looked at him and decided he was guilty. It was so okay for them to do this that they even recorded it. It was so okay for them to do this that they didn't need to hide it. All they had to say was it was a citizen's arrest and everything was okay. It was fine. It was dandy. It was so okay that they didn't even need to hide his body in the woods anymore. It's so okay that they don't even have to hide your body in the river anymore. They don't have to hide their faces behind masks anymore. It's so okay. It's so okay. I look at this story and I think to myself, damn, white men can kill you at will and nothing will happen unless thousands of people protest on your behalf. Unless CNN, unless New York Times, unless other major news branches protest on your behalf, it'll be okay. If somebody asked me, Evan, how old were you the first time you saw a lynching? I would say I was 29. His name was George Floyd. I look at this story and I find myself remembering the first time I had a conversation with my mom. Don't do these things if a cop talks to you. Don't do these things if a cop pulls you over. Don't be aggressive. Never be angry. Don't smile too big because they'll think you're crazy. Don't do anything quick. Don't do anything flinchy. Don't do anything to startle the cop. Whatever you do, Evan, no matter what the cop does, don't panic. You never panic. Never seem anxious. Don't do anything with your hands. If you have something in your hands already, don't drop it. If you don't have anything in your hands, definitely don't pick anything up. Never put your hands in your pocket. Make sure they can see your hands at all times. Just a list of things. Don't do this. Don't do this. And I remember the conversation multiple times in my life. Every black person that I've talked to, they remember having this conversation with their parents. But I look at this story, George, nothing that I was told could have saved you. Nothing on my list of don'ts would have saved you. It didn't matter that you didn't scare them. It didn't matter that you startled them, because, George, you can't startle somebody for 5 minutes and 53 seconds, and that's how long the knee was on your neck before you died. It doesn't matter that you listened to what the cop says. You were already in handcuffs. There were other cops holding you down, and they still killed you. It doesn't matter that you were in a city. It doesn't matter that there was daytime. It doesn't matter that people watched. It doesn't matter that you begged for your life, that strangers begged for your life. It doesn't matter that there were cameras rolling because the cop looked into the camera. Your words don't matter, George. Not in America, because here, law enforcement, they can kill you at will. People get upset over the words, Black Lives Matter. But notice, we're not saying Black Lives Matter more, Black Lives Matter most. It's just Black Lives Matter, but that's enough to really piss people off. That's enough to cause like a crazy debate in America. How bizarre. But what's more bizarre is Breonna Taylor's story. It's hard to look at the details of what happened to Breonna Taylor and still say Black Lives Matter. She was asleep with her boyfriend in her home, in her apartment, when just after midnight, a group of cops came. They kicked down the door. They didn't announce that they were cops. They weren't in SWAT gear. They weren't in police uniform. Just a group of white men in plain clothes came and kicked down the door. The boyfriend responds like any red-blooded, gun-on-an American would do in a stand-your-ground state. He reacted within his legal rights. He picked up a licensed gun. He fired one shot, not in the air, because he didn't want to kill anybody. He fired one shot towards the ground. The cops responded like something out of a video game. They shot back through the door, but they also shot through the walls. They shot through a window that had a curtain through it, a window that they couldn't have seen through. Other neighbors called the cops reporting stray bullets, bullet holes in their home, only to find out it was the cops who did it. Breonna Taylor was hit at least 8 times, but she didn't receive medical attention for 20 minutes. The cops left the scene with almost blank police reports. They reported Breonna Taylor received no injuries. How? You look at this story and you realize it's not just white women. It's not just white men. Law enforcement, they can all kill you at will, but now you don't even have to leave your home. You don't even have to be awake. You don't have to do anything to scare them. You don't have to do anything to startle them. You can be killed. But then you look at what happened to the boyfriend. He gets carted off to jail and charged with attempted murder. And so if you do survive after a white person decides it's your day to die, if you do survive that, you spend the rest of your life arguing, please understand. Please forgive me. It was a misunderstanding. I'm not a criminal. Please give me this job. I'm not a criminal. Please give me this home loan. I'm not a criminal. What's more bizarre is the men who killed her, the men who came and endangered an entire building, the men who came and took a life, the men who left the scene and didn't report their actions. They haven't been arrested. Laws can be passed on Breonna's behalf, Breonna's law. Hundreds of protesters can be arrested on Breonna's behalf, but the people who killed her, they're not arrested. But you know what? Maybe I'm just reading into all this too much. Maybe I'm making this up, this crazy message, nigger, you can be killed anywhere. Maybe I made that up. Maybe I read the news too much. Evan, you went to college, you pay attention to the news, you think too much. Maybe your wife, maybe she watches too much Trevor Noah. Maybe she watches the news too much. Maybe it's just you. When I lived in Boston a few years back, I volunteered with Big Brothers, Big Sisters America. I still keep in contact with my little brother, Gio. He's 16. He's a very large, very tall, very dark-skinned, beautiful black boy with dreads growing. He's in school. He's going to a private school in Massachusetts, in high school. He's dealing with all of the same issues so many of us have had to answer, or so many of the same questions we had to answer. He's trying to understand his own sexuality, trying to understand dating, trying to define what it means to be a black man in America, trying to figure out what does he want to do after high school? Who does he want to be? I reached out to him and I knew how dark, I knew how dirty I felt. And I was curious, Gio, are you getting the same message I'm getting? And so I asked him, hey, share with me your most recent journal entry. And this is something that we do from time to time. Just let me read your most recent journal entry. I want to understand, how are you digesting all of this? It starts off, don't take my silence as ignorance or disrespect. I'm just terrified. Mind you, this isn't an adult out in the streets being harassed by Amy's, being harassed by cops. No, this is a kid. This is a child. At home during quarantine, all he has are his books and his electronic screens reminding him, nigger, you can be killed anywhere. He's getting the same message I'm getting, but now, on top of answering all of the other questions that a typical high school kid has to answer, he has to deal with this. I ask him, what are your classmates saying? What are the peers? What are the people that are helping you form your worldview? What are they saying? He shows me a text message. It shouldn't matter because black people are more likely to die die in the hood rather than at the hands of a cop. I can't imagine the weight of that. I can't imagine having to look at my classmates and wonder, is that what they think of me? I can't imagine seeing my classmates' parents, my friends' parents, and wondering, is that what they say about me? Or having to walk into class, or for him, during COVID, during quarantine, having to look at his white teachers online, having to face his white teachers at school and wonder, is that what they think of me? Or to look in the mirror and wonder, is that the man I'm supposed to be afraid of? And so, where does all that leave us? I'm constantly asking myself, where are the triggers? And not the literal triggers, because I can't do anything about those. But where are the emotional triggers? For years now, since probably middle school, I've valued my ability to stay emotionally stable. I only let you see cool, calm, and collected, Evan. I only want you to ever see chill, go with the flow, Evan. I don't allow you to see me be angry. I don't allow you to see me be sad. I don't even allow you to see me get very excited. Like, I only want you to see one flavor of Evan. But since my wife told me George Floyd was killed, I can no longer say that. The moment she told me, it changed my voice. For 2 weeks, I couldn't talk without hearing the pain in my own voice. I didn't recognize the sounds that came out of my mouth for 2 weeks. I've been doing this presentation. It was on a Wednesday. It was 2 weeks after the fact. I presented to over 100 people and I didn't recognize my voice. I started a presentation and I thought to myself, oh, wow. you sound like yourself again. But it was several weeks after that anytime I talked, anytime I relaxed my core muscles too much, anytime I let enough air out of my lungs, anytime I relaxed too much, my body just curled over and I cried. And it didn't matter what we were talking about. It didn't matter if I talked to my wife about, what are we doing this weekend? What are we having for dinner? It didn't matter if I was reading my son a book. It didn't matter if I was answering a technical question in a meeting at work. If I talked for too long, I cried. The Thursday after I found out George Floyd was killed, I remember it was after dinner. I was in my kitchen. I was struggling to talk to my wife. I was struggling to talk to my mom. I struggled to talk to anybody. I struggled to talk. I was afraid of my own thoughts because I was so consumed by it all. I was putting away dishes, and I remember thinking to myself, Evan, you're okay. I was listening to music, Tash Sultana, a beautiful guitarist, a song with no words. There's no triggers here. There's no triggers. Evan, you're okay. Evan, this is safe. Evan, you're okay. Oh, thank you, spoon. Thank you, knife. Thank you, fork, for this distraction. Thank you. This is safe. Evan, you're okay. And then the guitarist hit just the right note. And just like that, Evan, you're not okay. It was like something grabbed me and pulled me to the ground, and I couldn't stop crying. I remember sobbing, thinking, Evan, breathe. Thinking, wife, please save me. Please save me from this darkness, this familiar darkness. Please save me from this sadness that I cannot heal. Please help me forget my own family's history dealing with racism. Please help me forget my own experience with this racism. Please help me get over this anger that I feel. This deep-rooted anger for being so fucking mad that this makes sense. Being so mad that I've seen my worst fears. I've seen my grandfather's fears. I've seen them in the news over and over and over. Please save me from this. But I can't even say the words. I can't even get the words out because I'm so crippled by anxiety. I just laid on my kitchen floor and fucking sobbed for no triggers. The next day, I walk inside my kitchen on my lunch. I look on the counter. There's a pack of water guns. 2 small water guns, little water pistols, little squirt guns. And I think to myself, oh, this is going to be cool. Like, Brixton is going to have a blast. It's going to be so fun running around, chasing each other with these little squirt guns. He already has a spray bottle that he likes to play with at bath time. I thought, this is going to be so cool. And then I blinked. And I saw the whole progression of the news story. Santa Cruz cop kills black man. Santa Cruz cop kills 15-year-old black boy. Santa Cruz cop kills your son. Santa Cruz cop kills Brixton Moss, 15. Justified shooting. Santa Cruz cop killed your son because he had a toy gun. They mistook it for a gun. He had something that looked like a weapon and they shot him for it. Evan, the cop's gonna get away with it. I saw the whole progression where they discredited his character. They smeared him through the mud. They smeared my son through the mud to make it look like being a kid, making a mistake was justification for him being murdered over having a toy gun. I felt the anger of that. I felt the guilt of knowing I had bought the toy gun. I let him have the toy gun. I felt that guilt of thinking, Evan, you are the reason your son was killed, and it fucking crushed me. All over again. 2 days in a row now, I find myself on my kitchen floor sobbing, unable to call out to my wife, but also unable to put myself back together. That Saturday, I woke up. It's just after 7 a.m. and anybody with a 2-year-old knows if you sleep after 6 on a Saturday, that's a big deal. I looked over at my pregnant wife. She was still sound asleep, and I think to myself, cool, let's let her sleep in. I go to my son's room. He wakes up. He's in a good mood. He comes over, gives me a hug. I change his diaper. We go to the kitchen. I cooked his eggs fast enough. I seasoned them just right. He just ate the food. He didn't smear the eggs on his face. He didn't smear it on his body. We didn't need to take a bath after breakfast. This is a good day. I look out the window. It's gray, but it's still bright. Like this is okay lighting. We should get dressed up. We should go take some father-son photos. I'll put on my burgundy pants. I'll put on your burgundy pants. We both have dark hoodies. Let's go take some photos together, and we'll just let mom sleep in. And so we do. I put on his clothes. I get dressed. I grab my camera. I grab my dog. I grab my tripod. And just before we walk out of the house, I kneel in front of him. He says, Daddy, hood up. Daddy, hood up. I kneel in front of him and I put his hood up, and I remember I took a moment and appreciated his blonde brown hair and how that contrasts with the black hood. Man, you are so beautiful. I love you so much. That's what I thought to myself. And then I blinked and I saw all of the news stories. I blinked and I asked myself, what if they look at you in your black hoodie? Evan, you were the one saying, don't wear a black hoodie and you'll be okay. But now you're in a black hoodie. Evan, you put your son in a black hoodie. If they do something to him because of his hoodie, can you deal with that guilt? Evan, if something happens to you, can you deal with that guilt? Evan, what if they don't recognize that's a child on your shoulders? What if you're just a scary black man in this very white neighborhood that you already don't belong in? What if they attack you for it? Evan, you saw what happened to Ahmaud Arbery. You saw that they killed him. What makes you think you should go out? Like, what if? What if something happens? What if you go out and you scare a white person? What if you go out and you startle a white person? What if somebody just decides you're guilty, Evan? What if? Can you deal with that? And all over, with no trigger, all over, I found myself feeling consumed, feeling overwhelmed, but Evan, you're a black man. It's not okay for you to not be okay. Definitely not right now. You can never explain that to your 2-year-old son. Evan, you can't cry right now. Evan, you can't be overwhelmed. Evan, if you cry right now, you would be letting the craziness of the world, the evil of the world, you would be letting racism use your body as a vessel to touch your 2-year-old son. That's not okay. Evan, it's not okay for you to not be okay. You have to eat all of this right now. All of this negativity, this anxiety, this fear, this anger. Fucking eat all of it right now, because you can't explain that to your son. You can't let that touch your son. So I do. I swallowed it and we went on a walk. We left the house. We went 2-ish blocks. I could still see my house. I'm still in my neighborhood. Brixton gets distracted by this beautiful little garden that's right on the sidewalk. And I think to myself, like, this isn't the destination that I was planning, but it's okay. Evan, this is safe. You know the man who owns this house. This is safe. You don't have an agenda. You don't have anywhere to be. Like, Brixton, take your time. This is cool. Evan, you're safe. But then the man who owns the house, he came to his front door. He opens his front door. He's standing in the front door. He turns and looks back inside his house, not to me, but he turns back inside and he yells, "Why did they have to kill him? He was already handcuffed." And all over again, I'm back in the middle of it. All over again, I'm fucking consumed by this crazy anger, this fucking fury to just be mad at the world, mad that I've seen the proof, mad that my feelings of sadness and sorrow, panic, terror, they're justified. I've seen the videos. I've seen what caused this. I know this personally. I'm consumed all over again. But Evan, it is not okay to not be okay. Evan, you're in public. Evan, there's a white man right there. There's a white lady there. Evan, you're not home. Evan, you're in public. Evan, you're on white people's property. Evan, you're in a white neighborhood. Evan, what if? What if you startle them? What if you scare them? What if they see your anxiety? That's enough. That's all it takes to get you killed. What if they see that you're afraid? What if they think you're angry? Evan, what if you get angry? Never get angry. Evan, what if the cops show up? Evan, what if this escalates? What happens? What if somebody else panics? What if somebody else is afraid of you? Evan, you could be taken from your son. Evan, they can take you. They can take your son. You can lose your son. You can fail at being a father. Evan, you have to be okay. Right now, Evan, right now, very quickly, you have to be okay. Because if you're not okay right now, if you don't suck this up right now, if you don't eat all of this shit real quick, Evan, something could happen. You have to be okay. Evan, swallow it. Evan, swallow it. You have to be okay. And so again, like we do so much, I tell myself, Evan, you're okay. And we finish our walk. We take a few photos and we get home. A few days later, this is still a week or so since George Floyd was killed. It's 7:30 p.m. My wife and I just finished giving our son a bath. She was drying him off. I step into the kitchen. I look in the refrigerator. We're out of milk. Fuck, we're out of milk. Evan, your son needs this milk. Brixton has to have this bottle. How did you let yourself run out of milk? You can't use Instacart. You can't use DoorDash. You can't use any delivery system. That takes 2 hours. Evan, your son needs milk right now. You can't send your wife to the store. She's pregnant. There's corona. That would just be irresponsible. You can't risk that. Evan, you have no choice. You have to go into public. You have to get into a car. You have to drive. If you get into a wreck, you know the cops will show up. If you run a stop sign, the cops will show up. Like, you have to take the risk. You have to be in public. You have to go into a store. Fuck, you got to be in public. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. So I go to the nearest store possible, the first place that sells milk. And, you know, I'm not a huge man. I'm not Terry Crews. I'm not Dwayne Johnson. I'm not The Rock. Right? But I'm also not a scrawny kid. And for as long as I can remember, anytime I go into a store, there's a list of don'ts. You probably shouldn't wear a hoodie. You should probably take your glasses off. Don't walk down the same aisle too many times because they'll think you're stealing. Don't pick up too many things from the shelves because they'll think you're stealing. If you do pick something up, make sure you have your money visible. Make sure you have your wallet visible. Make sure they can see you have a way of paying for it, or they'll think you're stealing. Evan, never be the angry black man in a store. Don't startle the white people. Don't scare the white people. Evan, if you scare a white lady, that can get you killed. Don't corner a white lady. Don't pressure a white lady. Don't, so many don'ts. But now I'm standing in this store with my half gallon of milk, and I look up and I make eye contact with a white lady. And fuck, Evan, what? You cornered her. You cornered this white lady, Evan. What happens if this escalates? What happens if she's an Amy Cooper? What happens if she panics? What happens if she's afraid of you? What happens if the store manager, if he thinks you're stealing? What happens if the cops show up? What happens if the cops show up here, Evan, and this escalates? Like, what do you do? What can you do to defend yourself? You can deflate. You can be as small as possible, Evan. Shrink yourself. Look as childlike as possible, because if you look like a kid, they won't think you're a threat. Don't smile too big, because they'll think you're crazy. Crazy people smile big, like just smile just right. Shit. I have to wear a mask. I can't even smile now. What can I do? Can I do anything with my hands? No. Evan, your hands will get you killed. Don't do anything with your hands. Evan, words didn't save George. Words didn't save Trayvon. Words didn't save Ahmaud. Your words mean nothing. Evan, all you can do is hope that they don't look you in your eyes and just decide you're guilty. Oh shit, Evan. Oh, white women, white men, police, they can all kill you. Get out of here, Evan. Escape. Get home. Escape. Escape now. Evan, you're not okay. Evan, you're not okay. And again, that familiar anxiety, the panic, it comes back really quickly. Just like that. And I find myself almost running to the cashier. I put down my milk. I put down the snacks for my pregnant wife. The cashier tells me my total. I take out my wallet. I pull out a $20 bill and I stop. I remembered the cop who killed George Floyd. He was called to the scene because George was accused of his money being fake. Evan, where did this money come from? Did you get this from a person or did you get this from a bank? Did you check the serial number? Did you hold it up in the light to see if it has the invisible face? Does it even have that face anymore? Evan, how do you know that this money is not going to be fake? How do you know that this isn't going to be what caused the cop who kills you, Evan? You cannot take that risk. You have to get home. You have to get home to your son and your pregnant wife, Evan. Use a credit card. Use a credit card that's safe, Evan. A credit card has your name on it. You have a license that has your name on it. None of it is expired, Evan. If you use a credit card, they cannot accuse you of stealing. They cannot accuse you of using counterfeit money. This is safe, Evan. This is legal and you can prove it. It has your name on it. Pay with a credit card and get home. If you pay with a credit card, you'll make it home. And so I do. I pay, I get back in my car. I drive home as fast as I can, but I don't speed because that can get you killed. I get home, I give my son his bottle, and I think to myself, you survived buying milk. It's a good day. And it's so weird now. I see neighbors on the sidewalk and they ask, what's it like working from home? How is working from home going for you? How is quarantine going for you? This whole shelter in place, how is that going for you? And it's so weird having to lie. It's so weird not being able to honestly say, oh, I'm so thankful for quarantine. I'm so thankful I don't have to drive to work every day. I'm so thankful I don't have to go to work and be the only black man in the room every day. I'm so thankful I don't have to answer the question, what happens if I find myself in a conference room and I say too many words? What happens if I'm not okay at work? What happens if I look over and I accidentally see somebody watching a George Floyd video at work? Like, what happens if that happens? Like, what happens if you are the one crying under your desk? What if you're the one that has to run out of the room because you can't stop crying because you feel the anxiety coming back? I'm so thankful I don't have to answer the question, what would happen to my career, to my ability to feed my son if somebody knew I wasn't okay? And while I'm trying to deal with that, people say this. It's sad that man died, but what does destroying property solve? That's my white wife's white grandmother. That's my black cousin. That's a manager addressing racism to his team and ending on this sentence. It's sad that man died, but. When I hear this, it feels like you're prioritizing property over life. You're prioritizing things that can be replaced over things I may never get back. And when I hear this, I realize I cannot trust your support. People ask, why can't you protest peacefully? Why can't you sugarcoat these words? But I look at what happened to LeBron James and how he was just told, just dribble. I look at how Colin Kaepernick and his whole legacy was smeared by other celebrities, by elected officials, by everybody. I'm just a project manager. I don't have millions of dollars. I don't have millions of followers. I don't even have anybody that reports to me. Nobody has to listen to what I say. I have no power. Who am I? What makes me think my peaceful protest would mean anything? My cousin says, you didn't see Martin Luther King rioting. You didn't see Malcolm X rioting. And I respond, you definitely saw them both get shot. When people say this, it's sad that man died, but I realize you don't know American history. The Civil Rights Act of 1968, Martin Luther King's biggest accomplishment, it wasn't passed until after he was shot. It wasn't passed until after 110 American cities rioted for 6 days. They caused $47 million worth of damage in 1968. That's approximately $356 million today. And so maybe that's the price tag. Maybe it takes $356 million of blood, sweat, and broken glass before America makes its next big step towards real equality. Or maybe it's the little people. Maybe it's the people who don't have millions of dollars, the people who don't get to make these life-changing decisions every day. Maybe it's their way of telling their elected officials, of telling their president, it's not okay to be racist. When I first saw this tweet, I thought to myself, good for him. Trump got creative. He rhymed. When the looting starts, the shooting starts. But then I did just a little bit of research and I found the news article that he was quoting. I found the police chief that he was quoting from 1967, from before the Civil Rights Bill passed. This article says, in declaring war on young hoodlums from 15 to 21 who have taken advantage of the civil rights campaign, we don't mind being accused of police brutality. They haven't seen anything yet. When the looting starts, the shooting starts. So now I tried to reread Trump's tweet in different tones, trying to find one that sounds correct, because this is how he's responding to George Floyd being killed. This is what he's telling his country. This is what he's allowing the whole world to see. When the looting starts, the shooting starts. Thank you. That doesn't sound right. When the looting starts, the shooting starts. Thank you. No. When the looting starts, the shooting starts. Fuck you. That feels right. That sounds right, but that's crazy. How could the man that's supposed to represent me, the man that's supposed to look out for me, like, how can he respond like that? But maybe he's not racist. Trump retweets racist videos showing supporter yelling, white power. That's the New York Times. They hate Trump. CNN, they hate Trump. Tom Forbes? Fox News? If Tim Cook were to tweet something like that, we would boycott Apple. If Jeff Bezos tweeted something like that, we would boycott Amazon. But how is it okay for a president of America to be so careless, to care so little about the people he's talking to, that it's okay for him to say that? I look at all of this and I think to myself, how lucky are you to see these things and not feel bullied? How lucky are you to watch the news, the evening news about the weather, about anything, and not flinch every time the news story changes, because you don't know, is this going to be the next George Floyd? Is this going to be the next Jacob Blake? Is this going to be the next story that destroys me all over again? How lucky are you to watch the news and not feel like the whole world is laughing at you, laughing in your face? How lucky are you to read a Trump tweet and not feel like racism, like the KKK, the neo-Nazis, these crazy groups that he won't condemn, that he's just inviting them back to the table? How lucky are you that you can hear "Make America Great Again" and not wonder, when is again? Again, as in before my grandfather had the right to vote? Again, as in before it was legal for me, a black man, to marry my white wife? Again, as in before it was legal to have a mixed race child? How lucky are you to forget any of this, any detail of this, any news story that you've heard about this? How lucky are you that you can ignore the urge to make somebody else feel as crazy as you do, as sad, as angry as you do? How lucky am I that I have this platform, that I can protest like this, that I can share my own truth so broadly? How lucky am I that I have this education, that I can string these words together in a way that helps you understand how I feel, that I can say these words and that I can feel better after? How lucky, how fucking lucky. And as people start to forget, I'm still sitting here thinking, when do I get to heal? When do I get to forget this? When do I get to move on? When do I get to stop worrying that my son will be the next Trayvon? When do I get to stop worrying that my son will be the next black body that they use in the news to try and sway voters? How lucky. And so people ask, what can I do? How can I be a better ally? You can keep the conversation going. Please, I beg you. Because silence is complicity, and that, in America, gets people killed. Protest however you can. I can't be in the streets protesting. My wife could go into labor at any moment. I have a 2-year-old son. I have asthma. There's corona. Like, there's so many reasons I can't be out. But I can still protest. I can still do this. not being racist is not enough, because not being racist didn't prevent America from getting to this point. Please share your perspectives. Share this perspective. Find somebody who tells you I'm wrong. Find somebody who tells you I'm right. Share your own perspective. Admit what you don't know about racism and challenge the things that you do. Because if you don't, we will continue to live in completely different realities. We'll live in completely different worlds. And my son will grow up and still have to fear whether or not his cell phone will be mistaken for a gun. And vote on everything, because it matters. And if you don't, this whole process will just continue to exist.